Today, we are going to take you on an earlier trip of Rome that we did in 2023, where you get to see more of Rome's great monuments.
So tiny when we came here, Joshua.
Right now in front of us is one of the most famous and iconic monuments in the world, the Colosseum, originally called the Flavian Amphitheater, named after the dynasty that built it. It was constructed between 70 to 80 AD. The Colosseum was a symbol of Roman power and ingenuity. It was used for shows such as gladiator fights, executions, and even mock naval battles. The things that happened behind the scenes to make the shows come to life, and also the structure and construction of the Colosseum, showed the brilliance of Roman engineering.
And there is a Jewish thing on there. There's a menorah on that. You got it. It's small compared to the Arc of Triumph, but it's beautiful.
The Ark of Constantine was completed in 315 AD, made to commemorate Constantine's victory over his rival Maxentius at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, thus making Constantine the sole emperor of the Western Roman Empire. His victory was eventually the reason he became Christian, thus turning a persecuted faith into the state religion. The Ark of Constantine is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful arches in the world with its intricate carvings and decorated columns.
I even have it in my mega. The sun is behind us.
The Roman Empire not only exceeded in architecture, but also in technology, military, and land. The time when the Roman Empire was at its peak was called Pax Romana. Pax Romana meaning
See,
Roman peace.
Another arch.
This was a time of relative stability and peace. Because of this peace, the Romans were able to connect the empire through a system of roads. One of the most famous Roman roads is the Via Appia, which runs from Rome to Brindisi. The Roman Empire at its peak stretched from the Levant to Iberia. The two largest languages in the empire were Latin, which was in the west, and Greek, which was in the east. Due to this, there were two distinct lingua francas. One example of this divide is in the New Testament of the Bible, which was written in Greek because Israel was in the eastern part of the empire, where Greek was the dominant language.
Oh, wow, look at that. Oh, that's all ruined. Oh, they put a church in there.
This is one of the most famous areas of the Roman Forum. And if you've ever been to the Forum, you will realize that many of the ruins are on a much lower elevation than ground level. This is even the case with the Pantheon. This is because of an interesting cycle that has happened in cities with very ancient histories. In the ancient and medieval eras, it was common that cities would be destroyed, most notably by fires and wars. As a result, there was constant rebuilding. When there was reconstruction, it was simply easier to build over the ruins. Thus, cities of antiquity like Rome and Troy ended up rising many meters over the centuries and millennia. One example is the Basilica of San Clemente, which is just down the main road from where we are now. The church, which we see today, was built over an early church, which in turn was built over a temple, and even that was built over even older ruins. For perspective, the area where that church is has risen 18 meters since the time of Christ.
Wow, look at that. Amazing, right? Let's go. Sorry. There's a Caesar statue here somewhere. Cross. On the Trevi side, you're right. And that famous picture. Josh, you remember that? Do you remember the yellow Buddha man story? That picture was taken in Trevi somewhere.
Okay, we need to stop and pick up water.
Yes. Come on, there's going to be shops inside here. Let's pick up one. Look guys, look here. This is Venezia. Come, let's get water then, come. Piazza Venezia.
I love walking down the street because it has very, very beautiful style, and right down the street you will see Piazza Venezia.
Look at the Venezia. See there, we get water then. If there's no aqueduct. Hey, Trevi, straight out. Uh-oh, Abby. Look, guys.
This is not it. That side.
Oh my God. Look.
The Trevi Fountain is a very beautiful landmark known all over the world. And when you go there, it is always crowded, which reflects its popularity. The Trevi Fountain in Rome was finished in 1762, designed by Nicola Salvi. It stands at the end of ancient Aqua Virgo aqueduct, which brought water to Rome over 2000 years ago. The fountain's main statue is Oceanus, god of water, riding a chariot pulled by seahorses that can represent calm and stormy seas. People throw coins into the fountain to ensure a return to Rome, and a tradition that continues today. Its grand Baroque style is seen in many movies such as La Dolce Vita.
Go down. Isn't that amazing, guys? Joshua, go.
It feels good to be back. Come on, let's go.
I love this walk to the Pantheon. It is a great landmark like the Trevi Fountain, and it catches the eye of many tourists.
Look at this square, Joshua. Oh, yeah.
Now we are entering the Pantheon, and when you look up to the dome, you see a hole in the middle of the dome. This dome is the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, just to show how brilliant the Romans were at engineering. There's the oculus, and it symbolizes the relationship between the heavens and the earth. The oculus has an impressive diameter of 9 meters
All this.
and was more than an aesthetic choice. It prevented the dome from collapsing by not having any weight or pressure on its highest point, also being the most pressured point. This was able to let it stand for millennia. The entire dome of the Pantheon has a diameter of 43.44 meters and forms a perfect hemisphere in the building. Its height from the floor to the top of the oculus matches the dome's width, creating a virtual sphere that symbolizes the harmony between the earth and the skies.
Come here, Abby. Abby, come here, please. You have to hold my hand.
Over here on the sides of the Pantheon, you can see the burial sites of many famous people, including the artist Raphael, the first kings of a unified Italy, Vittorio Emanuele II and Umberto I, and Queen Margherita.
Wait there in the sun. Wait there in the sun.
Gut, haben wir so eine.
Wasn't that amazing?
Jaylan.
Abbey, one of the greatest churches we've ever seen. Joshua,
Always inspiring.
always. See? Look, Abby, look. Look at the world open up. Hmm? Yeah.
After you see the monuments of Rome, you should come here to Piazza Navona. Located in a very central part of the city, it's a large and beautiful square. Throughout Europe, you will see squares like this. Now, obviously not as big, but in many areas, they are small squares as places of gathering, commercial activity, and a place to just relax and have fun. These squares are very fun where you can go to restaurants, bars, or like over here in Piazza Navona, you can see a beautiful church, the one we see in front of us right now. These squares all across major cities in Europe are decorated with fountains or churches and are usually the center point of a city. Like over here, this is in one of the most central places in all of Rome.
I love Piazza Navona, man.
If you ever go to Piazza Navona, you may see artists drawing caricatures of other people.
Come on, Abby. Can you rival this architecture? Anywhere in Europe. Anywhere in Europe, can you rival it?
They're shooting a video, ad video or something.
Oh, yeah?
Come back.
Now, we are going to enter the Vatican Museum, one of the most beautiful museums in the world. The Vatican is among the trinity of the greatest museums in the world, including the Louvre in Paris and the British Museum in London.
Abigail, come. I'm going to show
The
you.
Vatican is one of the largest religious and museum complexes in the world. Originally, the Pope had much power over the Papal States, which controlled the regions of Lazio, where Rome is, and also the regions of Umbria, Romagna, Marche, and Emilia. This was a time where the Pope had massive authority and power not only over the rulers of Europe, but also over its own sovereign state. Eventually, during the reunification of Italy during the 1860s and 70s, the Papal States were eventually eroded until the Vatican City was the only portion of land that the papacy directly controlled. In 1929, the Italian fascist leader Benito Mussolini negotiated the Lateran Treaty, allowing the Holy See to look over the city-state within Rome known as the Vatican City, the smallest country in the world. Vatican museums span nearly 7 kilometers of galleries and house one of the world's greatest collections of art and archaeology. They receive over 6 million visitors annually, and their mission remains to preserve, study, and display works of art and history tied to humanity's cultural and religious heritage.
This looks amazing.
Raphael's Transfiguration is his final and one of his most celebrated works.
Joshua, look at this. The legendary Raphael painting. This is called the Annunciation or Transfiguration. This is the Raphael.
This is the Raphael.
Talk about art. Come take one up. Come on.
Rome is one of the greatest cities in the world historically, and for a city with such ancient histories, it has had many rulers and many unique eras of history. The legendary founding of Rome has already been explained in our first video about Rome, and if you've not seen the first two parts, I encourage you to go check them out. I also encourage you to go check out the playlist we've been doing, where we saw many cities across the Mediterranean. The area where Rome is in the central part of the Italian peninsula. The Italian speakers in the area were the Latins, where the Latin language comes from, and many other ethnic groups, such as in Tuscany and in Umbria. The two main peoples that were in the area were the Greeks, which founded many colonies in southern Italy, including Naples, Taranto, and had also taken over most of Sicily, and the Etruscans, who are in the northern part of the peninsula. Eventually, by 650 BC, the Etruscans had become the dominant power in northern Italy and expanded into central Italy, where Rome was. The mythical seven kings of Rome, to represent the seven hills of Rome, started with Romulus and ending with three other kings who were said to be Etruscan or at least partly Etruscan. Soon, Rome became the most powerful and dominant state in the Latium region after winning the Battle of Lake Regillus in 493 BC against the Sabines. The Romans also started to subdue the Etruscan settlements and towns of the area, and started expanding throughout the Italian peninsula, overtaking the Etruscans as the most dominant state in the Italian peninsula. A formal treaty was signed between Rome and the city-state of Carthage, another growing and powerful city-state in the area, in 509 BC, which defined the spheres of influence of each city and regulated trade between them. During this time of a more powerful Rome, the Roman Republic was formed, including a senate and a full social hierarchy system. Rome was also influenced by Greek culture and art, taking on many of the architectural styles. For example, the Pantheon and the Colosseum, with its Greek-like Corinthian columns, among other styles. The Romans were such a bunch of copycats that they even copied the Greeks' gods. Roman and Greek culture intertwined so much that there is literally a term Greco-Roman.
We'll all hang out. Come on, it'll be fun.
As the Romans expanded throughout the Italian peninsula, they got into conflict with Carthage, one of the most powerful city-states in the entire Mediterranean and had the greatest navy up to that point. Carthage is located in modern-day Tunisia, close to the capital, Tunis. From their base in a very central part of the Mediterranean region, they expanded to the islands of Sicily, Sardinia, across the North African coast, and even all the way west into the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal. Eventually, Rome and Carthage fought the Punic Wars. There were three such wars between Rome and the Carthaginian Empire. The first one, Rome took over the islands of Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica. The second one, they took over the Iberian Peninsula. And the third one, they finally ransacked and blew up the city of Carthage, thus destroying the Carthaginian Empire within just 3 wars and 43 years.
Just to read it. I want to read it.
After the defeat of the Carthaginians in the Punic Wars, there was no major power to really stop Rome expanding not only in the Mediterranean but beyond. Rome ended up taking over Gaul, which is France, Iberia, which is Spain and Portugal, Britannia, which is Britain, and many other areas in the Balkans and Central Europe, and even all the way until Persia. The Roman Empire ended up stretching from Iberia to Persia, from Britannia to Africa, and from the Rhine and Danube rivers all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, we can't talk about every aspect of Roman history or all the emperors in Roman history, but we've come up with a set of 3 different emperors, including Augustus, Julius Caesar, and Trajan. Augustus was the first emperor of the Roman Empire, founded in 27 BC. The Roman Empire evolved from the Roman Republic after Rome had grown to such an extent that it became an empire and also had a series of absolute monarchs or even dictators. The second one is Julius Caesar. Although he wasn't a part of the Roman Empire, he played a crucial role in the demise of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. He was the great uncle of the first Roman Emperor, Augustus. Julius Caesar expanded the empire in many different ways. He took over the Gauls and even Britannia, the northernmost extent the Roman Empire would ever go. The third and final emperor was Trajan. Trajan's reign was the time where the Roman Empire was at its highest extent territorially. And during this era, you could see the Pax Romana at its peak, whether it be the road system and many other things that showed the organization and brilliance of the Roman Empire. After this era of the peak, it started to decline, and by 500 AD, the Roman Empire had become extinct. Although it continued in the east, all the way until 1493, when Constantinople, the second Rome, was taken over by the Ottomans. The reasons for the fall of the Western Roman Empire were political instability, the disfragmentation of the empire, disorganization, and less resistance to barbarian and Germanic tribes from across the Rhine and Danube rivers. 2 centuries after the fall of the empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, now known as the Byzantine Empire, was able to conquer Rome, but only for a short time. They are eventually overrun by the Lombards. The remaining era of the medieval era was heavily dominated by fragmented kingdoms throughout Italy and a new formation with church and state, more specifically with the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor. Charlemagne of the Franks was the first person to be crowned the Holy Roman Emperor, and thus for many centuries, until the early 1800s, there was a bond between the Holy Roman Empire and the papacy. Thus, the areas under the influence of both the Pope and the Emperor, which approximately align around the modern-day borders of Germany and Italy, were mostly fragmented until the late 1800s when they were both unified as 2 separate countries. During the medieval era, the power and influence of the Pope grew rapidly. From being a religious figurehead, the popes became among the most powerful in Europe. It was the popes who inspired the Crusades, which lasted from 1096 to 1291, almost 2 centuries. During the Middle Ages, there was a constant power struggle between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor. The Emperor was getting more powerful, especially after the Habsburgs became the emperors. On the other hand, the popes wanted to maintain their power over Europe. The popes became heavily entangled in European politics. The most notable example was when the papacy moved to a French city named Avignon from 1309 to 1377, where it became heavily related to the French monarchy. Because of acts such as these, many people became dissenting of the church, and along with the matter of doctrine disagreements, all the tension political and religious, culminated in 1517 when Martin Luther wrote the 99 Theses, thus sparking the Protestant Reformation. Many regions across Europe split from the Church. The reasons why different rulers split from Rome was religious as well as political. In the 1400s, a period of European history known as the Renaissance came about, starting in the Italian region of Tuscany, just north of Lazio where Rome is. It spread all across Italy and then beyond to Europe. The Renaissance was a cultural and scientific revolution across Europe. Many famous buildings across Rome that we have explained in this video had been built during this era, including the Vatican or St. Peter's Basilica where we are right now, the Sistine Chapel, which we are going to be seeing soon, the Ponte Sisto, the first bridge to be built across the Tiber since antiquity, Piazza Navona, which we saw earlier in the video, and there were many famous artists such as Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo da Vinci. But even with all the cultural and scientific improvements, the Renaissance was still an era of political instability, fragmentation, and wars. The Protestant Reformation started in the early 1500s, thus sparking a series of religious wars. The largest was the 30 Years' War, claiming 8 million lives across the Holy Roman Empire. And there were many more rival wars in Italy between the Emperor and the Pope. The Renaissance was not only a cultural and art revolution, but also an economic and financial one. Many famous banking systems were established during this era, mostly in Italy and among the Jewish communities across Europe. The Renaissance also brought about new architectural styles, such as Rococo and Baroque. These styles were used in the new palaces of Europe's kings. Versailles is one of the most famous, and across Europe, from Russia to Portugal, many palaces copied and modified this Baroque and Rococo style. After the new era of the Renaissance, a few centuries later, Napoleon ended up taking over Italy and much of the Holy Roman Empire, and dismantled many traditional forms of society and political forms as well. The Holy Roman Empire was dissolved during this time, and the entire fabric between emperor and the papacy was destroyed within a few years. But even after the dismantling of the Holy Roman Empire, Italy was still fragmented and under much influence by the Habsburg dynasty in Austria. After the Napoleonic Wars, the Metternich system was enforced, where Austria controlled the entire region of Venetia.
Joshua, look at the ceiling.
Right now, we are in the Gallery of Maps, which is in my opinion one of the most beautiful artistic designs in the Vatican as well as the world. On the sides, there are many beautiful and artistic maps from the Renaissance era. And on the left, the map that just passed us was a map of Corsica, where Napoleon was born. They may not be as accurate as modern day maps, but it's still very beautiful to see the artistic designs on it. For example, that shows a map of Rome and the Tiber River running from the coast to the interior Apennine Mountains. But on the ceiling is something even more beautiful. These paintings were planned by Musanio and Nebbia, and those were only a few of the artists that designed the Gallery of Maps. The 40 maps that are on the sides of this hallway were overseen by Ignazio Danti, who was a friar, mathematician, and cosmographer. In my opinion, this area is one of the most beautiful parts of the entire Vatican and one of the most beautiful spectacles of art in the world. And now for the final piece of Roman and Italian history that you have all been wondering about. When did Italy unify into one single country? After the Napoleonic Wars, there was a wave of Italian nationalism during the 1848 revolutions of Europe. But due to strong resistance from the rulers of Italy, it failed. Italy would not be unified until 1861. The unification of Italy is known as the Risorgimento, meaning rise again. The purpose of the unification was to unify the country and kick foreign powers out of Italy. The leader who led this was Vittorio Emanuele II, King of Sardinia Piedmont. The most famous general was Giuseppe Garibaldi, who defeated the Bourbon Kingdom of Naples and Sicily. The final peace of Italy came in 1870, when the Pope's rule over Lazio was ended. Italy made Rome the capital of the nation and built the Piazza Venezia in Rome to honor the Risorgimento. And that concludes the end of the history of Rome and Italy.
Oh my god, Abby, look at this.
Today, Rome is one of the greatest cities in the entire world. A city full of culture, history, art, wars, and beyond. I highly recommend that you visit Rome, the city of the seven hills.
My god, that's crazy. The whole room. Abby, it's too good, man. You can't compare, Abby. Come.
The Raphael rooms are among the highlights of the Vatican museums, and they have a fascinating history.
Abby, 11 or 10.
In the early 1500s, Pope Julius wanted to redecorate his private apartments in the Apostolic Palace. He commissioned the young Raphael to fresco the rooms. Raphael ended up creating one of the greatest artistic achievements of the Renaissance, rivaling Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Abby. It's too epic. This is the famous painting.
This is his most famous painting, The School of Athens, a gathering of ancient Greek philosophers and scientists symbolizing the pursuit of knowledge, reason, and truth. In the center figures Plato and Aristotle walking and discussing ideas. The face of Plato is based on Leonardo da Vinci. Welcome to the Grand Sistine Chapel in the Vatican Museum. In the center of the Sistine Chapel, there's a famous painting called Creation of Adam, and it was painted by the greatest artist of the Renaissance, Michelangelo. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can show you more videos from around the world.